Welcome back to Routine Rundown, the show where we discuss the beauty industry and our routines beyond what meets the eye. I'm your host, Zoë Weiner, Senior Beauty Editor at Well+Good, and today we're speaking of the founder of Solluna and host of the Feel Good podcast, Kimberly Snyder. In our conversation, we discuss the relationship between the 4 pillars of wellness, aka the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, and beauty. Kimberly elaborates on how her diverse experiences have led to her holistic perspective. Before we dive in, don't forget to please leave us a review, share this episode with a friend, and subscribe to our newsletter linked in the show notes to keep the conversation going. Now, let's get this party started. So Kim, I know that many people in the wellness world know lots and lots about you and your life, but can you, for the uninitiated, tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I did a lot of work in the entertainment world, and then I brought in my life and my career into launching my business called Solluna, which is based on our 4 cornerstones of wellness. And along the way, I've written 6 books. I have a podcast myself called the Feel Good Podcast. What I started to see, Zoe, over these experiences of being able to really work closely with many different types of people really clarified for me this holistic perspective of wellness and beauty, which is really what I promote today, which is the whole being. Really, it's physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And this is what I've always found gives the best results in helping us feel our best and also look our best as well.
And how do these 4 pillars and this holistic approach that you've taken fit into beauty?
So again, it was very hands-on as the philosophy developed. I was in New York, but prior to that, I was backpacking around the world for 3 years. So when I graduated from college, first I thought I might be a doctor. And then I interned in a hospital one summer and thought, oh my gosh, this is not my path. So then I saved some money and I ended up being on the road to over 50 countries. And the reason this was so impactful was because I was mostly in Asia and Africa and some South America. So I was out of the Western world. So I had a very different view of beauty and health and wellness after that experience. I used to be a chronic calorie counter and dieter, and it was very surface, my approach before. India was one of the most impactful countries to me. I learned about yoga and meditation, and I was learning how to work with energy in a different way. And so when I came back, what happened was I started a free blog and I was teaching yoga and I was going back to nutrition school. And what happened was the blog just started to organically spread through New York City. And then my first celebrity found me. And then I started working with all these different people. And then the first book deal came. And so I've always had this perspective of beauty that's more related to energy, meaning we create everything from the inside out. So if we want to have great skin, if we want to have a glow to us, if we want to have a kindness, a softness, a magnetism, all of this is really beautiful. You build it from the inner energy. And so from the beginning, even though I would be billed as a nutritionist from the studios, I was always working with clients in a really holistic way. So my long-term clients that I have to this day, like Drew Barrymore, it wasn't just physical. There was this aspect of food, which is energy, but there was also meditation and there was also just sitting and processing and journaling and all these other aspects. And so then later, when I came to create my business after a really difficult personal period in my own life, where I lost my mom suddenly and all these things happened, that's when I said, Zoe, what do I really want to create in the world? And it became really solidified to me. I really want to put this message forth of holism. And this is the real powerful form of true beauty.
I love that. I spent a year traveling a lot through Asia and really all over and had similar experiences with these traditional wellness practices and beauty practices that really went so beyond the aesthetics that I feel like is what we so often focus on here, in the TikTok and Instagram world, where it's put on a mask that'll make you instantly glowy and all of that. But so much of what you do is about the deeper holistic element of that. Are the health and aesthetic elements of beauty at odds? Are there places that they can fit in together? How do you approach that?
I take an expansive approach, right? So, for instance, numbers. A lot of us focus on numbers in our life, and you think about the limitation of number, which doesn't give the full picture. It could be the number of carbs you're eating, it could be your age, it could be the number on the scale, right? There's a million different ways that numbers come in and influence our sense of self. Again, it goes back to energy and just looking at things in a broader way. So, it doesn't mean that the way I approach beauty means you can't love products. I love products too. We have products at Solluna, at my brand, but it means that we don't put our full worth, our full identity, and all this stuff outside of us, whether it's a product or the number of followers you have, or all these things that people use to often create this validation. We can have that too, but it's more balanced when we also have an inner anchor, an inner connection. Something I talk about a lot is rhythms and routines. For instance, having a really strong morning practice, which includes hot water with lemon and drinking the Golden Green smoothie, putting fiber in your body, getting connected to your body, and taking SBO probiotics and meditation. So when we do that, we also have this balance of inner and outer, and the outer doesn't get out of control. So it's like the cornerstones I said, Zoe: food, body, emotional well-being, and spiritual growth. I've worked with so many hundreds of people, and I can almost tell you always, if someone's obsessed with their body or someone's obsessed with the food part of their life, it's because the other two cornerstones aren't being nourished: the emotional well-being / mental health, or the spiritual growth, which I define as interconnection. So when we work on those other ones, the other ones work out better and more easily. And there isn't this obsession, there isn't this tightness and rigidity, right? So when we take this more expansive approach, it doesn't mean bad, good. We can't have products, we can't do this or that. It just means we're looking at it from a broader lens. And then we always, and I say this with confidence, we always get better results.
Yeah. And I think so much of what the industry talks about is this idea of look good, feel good. But what you're talking about is really like feel good, look good. It's about, from what I understand, nourishing every part of yourself. And then that will show up in your true beauty, really, which I want to dive into. And I know you talk about a lot in your new book.
Yes. So when we're so focused on the physical and what's missing, for instance, for me, the acne, I miss having clear skin. I'm hyper fixated. I'm just trying to put creams out here. It's a very limited approach. Versus, what are some of the energetic reasons I have acne? For one, I was so anxious that I wasn't digesting my food well. So there was this overgrowth of toxicity in my system. I wasn't releasing enough. And that in turn congests the blood. It recirculates through the body. It is a contributing factor to acne. So again, when I could see, I need to find ways to deal with my anxiety, I need to find ways to connect inside, it all started to work together. My GI tract started to function better, my digestion, and then your nervous system, everything just started to flow. And so a lot of the messages we get, Zoe, it's true. It's like, take this product, or we focus on what's wrong or what we perceive as wrong with us. But really, if we connect inside and work with this energy, it's like the Ayurvedic approach to looking at food. It's all energies, not just numbers. We get more expansive results. Never again, Zoe, did I have to diet or count calories. I just learned to food combine. I learned to digest my food better. I learned all these things. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the answer I want to share with everybody, because it doesn't have to feel so hard. It doesn't have to feel so limited when we're working with energy.
Yeah, I feel like when I'm feeling stressed or anxious or just not my best mentally, it always starts to show up on my skin. And as a beauty editor, I have so many products to try, and just nothing works, I feel like, until I get the rest of what's going on together. Products can fix a pimple, but really, if there's more hanging out under the surface because of where I am mentally, it's not going to make the change until I do some of the things that you're talking about.
Exactly. We think about the low-grade inflammation that most people are experiencing day to day, or this imbalance between our parasympathetic and our sympathetic nervous system. That has a physical effect. When our bodies are in fight or flight, we literally get blood flow and energy pulled out of our GI tract because our bodies think, there's some sort of crisis here. And that leads to bloating. That leads to feeling low energy. That leads to feeling really heavy and stuck. But when we take this wider approach, like I said, I've seen it hundreds, thousands of times, Zoe, with all my book readers and clients. It's so powerful and it's so empowering, and it gives you enlightenment, more and more freedom in your life.
And I imagine holistic beauty can be confusing for people, particularly those of us, which is really all of us, who are being pushed products and pushed like this will miraculously fix XYZ problem. What do you think are some of the things that people tend to get wrong about this holistic approach to beauty? And what are the cornerstones that you think everyone should know about?
So again, I believe that everybody needs to focus on these four if you really want to build a life of wellness, which is food. We all have to put food into our body. So we really want to pay attention to the quality and the energetic properties behind it. Body, we're having this embodied experience. So we want to take care of our bodies that are our temple. And when our bodies don't feel good, we don't feel well in our mind or in our lives. Then this is where it gets into the formless. And this is where I think a lot of people struggle. Emotional well-being, which we could say is mental health, right? So this is when there's circular thought patterns. We find ourselves feeling like we're not enough. We're overemphasizing the looks again because we don't feel good on the inside. So we're trying to constantly change the outside. And that could be at work. It could be with your physical body. It could be trying to lose weight. It could be a million things. And then the fourth one is spiritual growth. And this, I'm not talking about, religion or anything. As I defined it, is our unique essence. You could call it your heart. You could call it the voice of your intuition. This is who you are. So in my new book, I talk a lot about the true self versus the ego. So when people get really confused and they're like, oh, it's all this external stuff. When we over-identify with the ego, it means that we are over-identifying with our peripheral nervous system, so to speak. So it's everything that we can sense with our five senses. It's what we're seeing, what we see in the mirror, what we see other people doing on social media, right? It's like all this stuff out here. And that's why we have two physical cornerstones and two formless cornerstones. The antidote is to take some of that energy and to connect to your central nervous system, which is your spine and your brain, right? And we know that, for instance, there's so much research now around meditation, waking up different parts of your brain, helping to regulate your whole system. So what I'm suggesting, like I mentioned in the morning practice, is that you can spend time out here, but we balance it inside. We ideally would meditate for at least 5 minutes before we get into our emails. We would do some practices in breath work, which helps us to discern our body's needs before we start eating. We can really tell when we're hungry and when we're not, right? So it's really the internal work as well as the external work that gives you what you're looking for. And if you're stuck out here all the time, you're just products after products, all the different workouts, that's fine to dabble in, but then you can go over and get obsessed. And then you don't really have any peace and you don't have any joy in your life. You don't have any fulfillment. You never quite feel like you're there. It's always that dangling carrot, the next thing, the next thing. And then your life just goes by. And sure, you might lose a couple pounds, but in the end, it's not really living a beautiful life.
I want to talk about your book because I've been reading it. It's called You're More Than You Think You Are, Practical Enlightenment for Everyday Life. And I've learned so much and now I'm excited that we're diving deeper into all of it.
Yay.
So in your book, I know you mentioned the true self and you talk a lot about true beauty, which I found really, really interesting. How do you think that differs from what our wider perception of beauty is? And why is it something that we should all be looking inside and thinking of?
It connects to the overemphasis on the shell, right? The ego is what we look like, what our achievements are, what you can show on paper. And then there's mostly who we are. This is your uniqueness. This is your unique voice. This is your unique energy. We can say in spiritual terms, spirit individualized inside of you. And so the chapters in the book talk about intuition. They talk about magnetism. So there's some people that have physical beauty, and that's great too. And we can certainly work towards that with products and great haircuts and all of that. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think, again, it doesn't have to be contradictory. But the true beauty I define is the more you are connected to your true self. So this means when you are really comfortable with who you are and you can say, okay, here's the stuff I have to work on, like everybody, and here's the stuff I'm really great at. But you're not beating yourself up every day. You're not trying to be like someone else. You're not living in your mind of anxiety and jealousy and envy and comparison all the time. You get to this real anchor, this place where you feel great and it's very magnetic, right? And so this is something that comes not just from hyper fixating. The outside is never going to be perfect enough, right? Those of us that live on that surface, there's always going to be a flaw. There's always going to be a little thing to fix. But yet when we can connect inside and find this place of real peace, and we've all been around people that are just really comfortable with themselves. And then there's this softness, there's this kindness, there's this almost this gentleness, but it's powerful that comes through. And that's what true beauty is. You want to be around that. You want to listen to that person. You want to be in that person's presence. And so I really think that we can have both. We can work on the outside too. But the ironic thing is when we work on this comfortability, you glow. There is literally more light in your system. Everything functions better, including your digestion. So even though the emphasis is on the outside, people say, oh, what's going on with you? You have more of this glow about you and people are attracted to it. So it is really important in the world that we focus on both. We're seeing what celebrities look like in like very glossy, over-retouched pictures, and that's not real life. And the closer you look, you realize, oh, that's actually pretty empty. And yet true beauty is real love and connection and kindness. And that's super magnetic and also just feels really good to live a life from that place as well.
Do you think that it's become more difficult for people to get to this place given this perfect picture type world? Do you think that there's an obstacle to overcome for people to relearn how to think about that internal, holistic, true beauty element when so much of what we're seeing all the time is the external?
I do. I think that it's a world with it's very image focused. And so it's up to us to make that decision, Zoe. Do I want to live a life of holism and holistic wellness? And that means, like I said, we have to really take charge in our lives and say, okay, I'm going to focus on these 4 cornerstones. And then you create a system, which is a lot of what I teach about, whether it's I do my morning practice before I get on social media. I don't have alerts dribbling in all the time, which takes away my focus on me. I'm on social media. I batch the time. It's a very specific times I'm on social media, and the rest of the time I'm doing something else. So I do think if we don't take the practices and the tools and put them in place, you get swept in and you feel like crap. And that's why I think a lot of women are today. I just had this woman on my podcast, a professor from Northwestern, and she's been doing research on social media recently. I mean, this is like a new phenomenon in a sense, but now there's science coming. And she found that specifically, if a woman is on Instagram for 7 minutes, it reduces their mental health. People are on there way more than 7 minutes, right? So we just have to be aware and say, okay, I don't go on if I'm in a place where I feel vulnerable or I've done my morning meditation or whatever it is. We really have to create that balance. Otherwise, we're just going to be stressed out all the time and we're never going to feel good enough. And that sucks. We don't want to give our power away in that way. We don't want to just give it to the media. We don't want to have alerts coming in all the time. And, we have to take charge, like I said.
Totally. I go through phases of deleting Instagram off my phone. I did it yesterday because it's the same thing. It's like looking at so many images and just seeing so much all the time. And especially like when you work in beauty and you're in this industry, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for people who are trying to connect to their true beauty? Like, are there things that they can do? How do we get there?
So we can't really know who we are in a deep way on the inside unless we spend time with ourselves. So I do go into this in great detail, Zoe. I also talk a lot about intuition in the book because I think that's one of the most powerful tools that we can develop. Paramahansa Yogananda, the great yoga guru who brought yoga to the West, he calls intuition the infallible voice of the inner council. So the more we spend time inside, what that means is when the little voice of the ego says, oh, Zoe, you're not good enough, or oh, Zoe, you got to work more on your beauty, your intuition can shoot that down and say, actually, that's not true. I feel really good inside of me. And so the most important practice that I can recommend, it's very simple, it's part of the morning routine, is you meditate first thing in the morning. And this is the flow of your energy. This is the flow of your breath. And I have guided meditations on our Solluna app, which are 5 minutes. It's the most powerful way I've changed my life because I used to get up and do all this stuff and get on my phone. And then I would maybe meditate later, but you're already in the day. You're already in the external world. So just by sitting and connecting inside, that's how you really connect to your true beauty. You connect to you. And then you have a connection to you. You've gotten to know you. So when you're in the world, you don't have to feel like you're comparing yourself so much because you understand this unique energy inside of you. The chapter in the book, You Are Beauty, I also talk about this practice. It's an Ayurvedic practice, which I lead you through mirror gazing. When you do this Ayurvedic practice, you can really see down to this deeper place inside of yourself. And it was actually really beautiful and really releasing when I started to do it. I'll also say that I take that time after meditation and I get out my journal. And this is where you expand on that energy from meditation. This is where I get my best ideas. This is where you can process things, some emotional things, and let them go. So those two practices, along with, again, lots of fiber in the morning, which gives you this grounding presence and helps detoxify old energies, hot water with lemon, all the things that we do to really spark elements inside of our body. It really does work together. But I'll say quickly, Zoe, there's 3 parts of the book. And this is really how the yogis taught how you live your best life. Part 1 is getting rid of the blocks. So for me, it was like these digestive blocks, but they were based on anxiety and fear. You have to move some of that energy. You have to see it. And then part 2 is where you start to know yourself and you embody these qualities like intuition and inner peace. And then part 3 is where you create. So the longest chapter in the book is called You Are Creator, how we take our best ideas and put them into your products, into your website, whatever it is. That's the chapter on abundance. That's the chapter on magnetism, where I talk about how I came to write the book with Deepak Chopra. So a lot of people, Zoe, just go straight to creating and they're like, man, I'm just getting shitty results. And it's because they don't do parts 1 and 2. So as the yogis teach, we want to like get the dead old stuff. We need to detoxify some of that out, embody our power, and then create. And that's the same with beauty.
I love just how closely it kind of all ties together. I think, we really use the word glow very sparingly on Well and Good. And I think this is really the only example I can think of like the true glow, where it's inside out. You're really addressing kind of all of the things, and they are as almost a side effect, making you look like your best self, but also making you feel like your best self.
So in the Bhagavad Gita, which is the ancient text of India, there's quite a lot about fire, which in Sanskrit means tejas. And in an elemental sense, tejas is the light, the light inside of you, right? So glowing essentially means working with fire, working with that light. So there's many ways to work with the light across the cornerstones in very practical ways. And this all comes from ancient teachings and ancient wisdom and Ayurvedic medicine. It's all there for us to really learn from and take advantage of.
Amazing. And because this is routine rundown, can you tell me a little bit about your beauty routine? I imagine it's more holistic than just products.
So for me, when I do my morning and my evening routine, it always includes the cornerstones. There's meditation, first thing, which is spiritual. And then there's some journaling, which is the emotional. And then for food, I'm taking in hot water with lemon first thing, which the vitamin C and the enzymes are great for your liver, great for detoxification, great for your skin. And then the glowing green smoothie when I start to feel hungry, which is fiber and cleansing. And then I take the Solluna SBO probiotics. So supplements for me falls in the body cornerstone. From a skincare perspective, I keep it simple: cleanser, vitamin C serum, moisturizer. I don't use a ton of products, but the ones I use are potent and non-toxic. We actually have skincare at Solluna as well. And then in the evening, I take a shower. And again, I use simple products. Sometimes I like to exfoliate my skin. So I think that's really important just to help everything slough off. And then I do a similar routine. I use eye cream at night, and moisturizer and cleanser. And once in a while, I really do like clay mask. I think it feels really good. I like that feeling of pulling out. And then I'm also a big fan of hot elixirs. And this goes back to the connection with digestion in the body. And one of the most powerful ways Ayurveda says that you can increase your agni is drinking hot water. And then add in the decoction. So you're infusing things into the hot water, whether it's ginger or, a million different ingredients, cumin, coriander seeds, whatever it is. You're allowing your body to take in this energy, and the heat allows you to come back into the present moment. And that's so important at the end of the day because we've been on our phones, we've been on our computers all day. So it's hot shower, skincare, hot elixir, and then meditation and journaling again. And that's the bookends of my day, morning and evening.
How do you keep your beauty routine from feeling like a chore? And how do you ensure that like those moments you're taking for yourself really feel like they're being taken for yourself?
So I think it's really important that, yes, we honor the bodily temple. We honor the times that we are coming into it. And so a big part of that is touch. And in the Ayurvedic system, they say that the most powerful anti-aging practice, if you want to say that, is self-massage because it soothes your nervous system. So your nervous system is jacked up all the time. You age faster, right? So it's when we're doing these practices, Zoe, it's not just rushing through like another to-do list. And if you find yourself hurried, which is a sense of lack, like I don't have enough time or I'm just checking out things off the list, you just take a couple deep breaths and you come back to this moment. And you just want to really treat it as sacred time. And I think it's important to notice, like I said, the way that you touch yourself and your body. Does it feel healing? Or are you kind of just trying to move through it as fast as you can? And it's like taking that time and say, no, I'm not going to hurry. I'm going to honor this. I'm going to honor this time. I'm going to honor myself. And there will be a tremendous difference in your nervous system, which again is connected to your endocrine system. It's connected to your immune system, many things. So we really want to honor it.
It's so true. And are there any products in particular that are a part of your routine right now that you are just in love with or that you swear by right now?
So I'll talk about the internal and then some external. Little disclaimer, the Detoxy is a Solluna product. So it's the number one thing that I feel like I can't live without. It is basically nascent oxygen combined with vitamin C and magnesium. So what it does, because we all do not release enough, especially as women, you take it in the evenings and it helps you release more. So you have bigger bowel movements. And I can't tell you how much this helps your skin, your energy, your life. It is not habit forming. It is not a laxative. It is the most incredible thing. The oxygen is also really wonderful in your cells. So it's this combination that just helps you feel light and energetic. I also take our Solluna SBO probiotics every morning, our clinically researched strains, which mimics how we got probiotics from the soil. The exfoliant that I use is the one from Goop that I like a lot because it's very smooth and it doesn't feel rough on my skin. And then there's a hand lotion that I use that's actually from Mind Body Green that doesn't feel oily. So again, I try things. I don't use a lot of stuff, but those are some of the things I like a lot.
And then finally, if you could boil down your beauty philosophy to 20 words or less, what would that sound like?
So true beauty is letting your uniqueness come forward and being really comfortable with yourself.
I love that. Well, Kim, thank you so, so much. This has been such a treat. I feel like I learned so much. And now I'm going to go stare at myself in the mirror for a little and address some true beauty things and keep Instagram off my phone for at least a little bit.
Thank you so much for having me. I love your bright energy and your openness. And thank you so much for really highlighting my different perspective of beauty today.
On the next episode of Routine Rundown,
if these ingredients are in our products, like what are we putting in our skin as well? And so for us, as we dug a little bit deeper, I guess our no list sort of extends, into anything that will harm land or waterways. So even though we're really focused on reef safe, we actually also make sure it isn't affected to, rivers and lakes and things like that, any kind of water streams.
On today's show, you heard me, your host, Zoë Weiner, in conversation with Kim Snyder. Routine Rundown is a Well+Good Studios production. If you like what you heard, please share with a friend or two so they can join the conversation too. We also have a newsletter for you to subscribe to, which we've linked in the show notes for extra insight on all things mentioned in today's episode. And if you feel so moved, you can always drop us a line at podcast@wellandgood.com. Routine Rundown is produced by Taylor Camille, Jen Snyder, and Abby Stone, along with help from many other hands and brains at Well+Good. Our episodes are edited by Sarah Gabrielli and Maya Stone, with additional production support from Malia Agadello and Ashley George. Our theme music was created by Nick Doss, and our show art was designed by Natalie Carroll, Jenna Gibson, and Alyssa Gray.